According to MarketWatch, Apple faces risk of perishable demand for iPhones. Analysts say, is this the end of the iPhone upgrade cycle? Have people finally listened to my videos? There's almost 10,000 of you, so maybe we had an impact on people not buying phones. Probably not though. So this article came up today with regards to the supply shortfalls and how Apple hasn't sold as many iPhones as they thought they would be selling. Apple more or less has been forced to sell less phones because it has less supply available, and this has forced consumers to hold on to their older phones, potentially switch over to Android, but more than likely, if you're an iPhone user at this point, you're probably just sticking with iPhone, so you've been forced to keep your current cell phone. And this is something that Apple knew was potentially going to happen. The article states here that there was a key debate whether or not Apple would just see demand push back into 2023, or if some of the customers would just wait longer to upgrade. If they would just say, well, I'm just going to wait for the 15 and then I'll buy the 14, or I'm just going to wait until the 13 goes even cheaper on sale, whatever that may be. I think that's the case with a lot of people. This is the type of thing where Apple isn't allowing people to upgrade because the supply isn't there. And while obviously this is a greater problem than just smartphones, for the sake of smartphones, I think it's actually a good thing for less smartphones to be sold, because I love the internet. I love how it democratized data and information, but at the same time too, people haven't used the internet in the most effective way, and it has caused a lot of pain and anguish, especially for people around my age and younger. But what this means is that people are being forced to consider their upgrade path a little bit more carefully, maybe keeping their phone for another 6 months to a year because they just simply can't get the smartphone that they wanted. And this is ultimately a good thing. I think that obviously all the lockdowns and everything had a lot of negative side effects, but there were some positive side effects. I think this sort of being one of them. The availability of certain tech products with regards to cars, PlayStation 5s, Xboxes, smartphones, all these things became a little bit less accessible. You couldn't just walk in, throw in a credit card, and walk out. I think that was actually a good thing for a lot of consumers, because a lot of these tech purchases, in my opinion, are sort of on a whim. They just one day say, I want a new smartphone, and then after work they just go buy one. But I think that because of the lack of availability of a lot of these smartphones, people have been a little bit more reluctant to go upgrade, because one comment here says that, I know I had planned to upgrade my iPhone 12 to a 14 Pro Max, but they are unavailable, which means I'll wait until next year or possibly the year after. And I think that this is a sentiment that a lot of people are feeling. Apple supports their phones for an extremely long time. There is a curve of tech product usability over the course of its lifetime. And in my opinion, this curve has gotten more and more favorable towards tech products like smartphones, computers, iPads, tablets, watches, all these cars lasting longer and longer and longer. A few years ago, when you had an iPhone 5, the difference between a 5 and a 5S, or a 5S and a 6, these were actually pretty big jumps in technological performance. The cameras were dramatically better. The screens were dramatically better. There were, going from the 5S to the 6, there were screen size improvements. There were a lot of things to upgrade from between years, but that has slowly dwindled. If you look at an iPhone 12 versus an iPhone 14, you can't really tell the difference between any of them. My mom asked me recently what phone she should get because she's had hers for like 5 years. And I said, oh, I don't know, just like the 13, 12, or the 11, whichever one they have for sale. Because for the most part, you just buy one of the cheap ones. I mean, that's how people buy smartphones. 4 years ago, I'd be like, well, it depends. What kind of camera system do you want? What kind of screen size? What kind of this? What kind of that? And nowadays, every single phone is just so good. Everything's so nice. I was watching a Linus Tech Tip video, and he was complaining about how the NVIDIA 4000 series graphics cards don't have support for DisplayPort 2.1. And it was a completely ridiculous thing to me. It is DisplayPort 2.1, for those of you who don't know, is a very, very, very high bandwidth port. So you can pump an extreme amount of data from one port to your monitor. The size of these files are absolutely massive, that are transferring every single second, or 60 times per second, 120 times per second, all the time. The complaint was because they didn't include DisplayPort 2.1, they couldn't run an 8K monitor at 120 hertz. That's why they were complaining, because, and I get the complaint, I get the actual complaint. Why are they unnecessarily hampering these $2,000 graphics cards? They should be putting the best of everything inside of the most expensive graphics card that money can buy. But the actual complaint, when you break it down beyond that part of it, beyond the like, well, this is anti-consumer, let's just talk about what the actual complaint is. DisplayPort 2.1. can support a 4K monitor at 480 hertz. Do you know anybody that has a 4K monitor that can refresh 140 times per second? Or 120 times per second, 144 times per second, let alone 480 times per second? Do you know anybody with an 8K monitor? I mean, we are talking about like the differences between an 8K monitor, 4K monitor, 1440p monitor, 1080p monitor. I think that the difference between 720 and 1080 is pretty noticeable. When you're playing on a Switch and you go from 1080 to 4K, you can actually notice that change a little bit. But we're talking about we're not talking about going from 240p to 4K. We're talking about these basically completely irrelevant changes that won't affect almost anybody, and we're complaining about it. I don't think we should be grateful to the companies. They've made a bunch of money off of the consumer, but we could be grateful of the situation that we're in, where we can have the audacity to complain about a graphics card that doesn't support 8K at 120 hertz. I think that we could take a step back and realize, wow, we have it pretty darn good in this time frame of our life. Looking at people and how they're buying their smartphones and how they're buying their tech products, I really believe that people have started to realize that they need to hold on to their products a little bit longer. Everything is just working better for longer. Me personally, everything I have is I have a 1440p monitor and a 1080p monitor. I'm using a Ryzen 7 3700X with a RTX 2070 Super. My computer edits 4K video extremely easily. There's no problems with it. And it is like, for modern standard, it is a relatively old computer. It's 3-4 years old at this point, all the components, but it still works completely fine and I have no reason to upgrade. So I think that a lot of people are starting to feel this. They aren't upgrading their monitors, they aren't upgrading their TVs, they're not upgrading their consoles, they're not upgrading their computers, their phones, their sound systems, whatever it may be. I think people are starting to realize that they don't need to upgrade that often, because thankfully, in this case, the company is sort of forcing them not to upgrade because Apple hasn't been able to supply all of the phones that people may want. But I really think that this is a good thing for consumers. The less money you can spend on these devices, the better. I say it all the time. It's not necessarily all about the money. I think that the money can be a big deal. I've made videos on how if you just invested the money that an iPhone costs you each year, you could become a millionaire with some generous percentages each year. But the idea is still the same. I think that, yes, it's important financially to think about these things, but at the end of the day, the reason I hate people upgrading their smartphones and spending all this money on these phones is because, for the most part, most people are miserable every single time they use their phones. People are marrying less, people are having less kids, people are more depressed, people are more unhappy. Society isn't better off with these smartphones. Society is, in my opinion, significantly worse off. Nobody is better off having a smartphone. There are some things sometimes where it's better, but in my opinion, if you can't control your social media usage, how much time you spend on it, how much time you're spending away from your family, if you can't control those things, you certainly shouldn't be spending thousands of dollars each year on the tech products themselves, because not only are they probably making you unhappy, but they also cost a lot of money, and you could put that money towards maybe an experience, or just you could take that money, throw it into an investment account, and take that time and put that towards spending time with your family, going out and finding a wife, in your case if you're a man, because that's the only people who watch these videos, and have some kids. I'm telling you what, having kids is very fun. And at the end of the day, I just want you guys to stay on your phones a little bit less. So delete the app that you're watching this video on. My videos are extremely counterproductive, but seriously, spend less time on YouTube. I'll see you guys in the next one. So this is the end of the video. I'm going to talk a little bit about with regards to this channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out. Sorry it's been so long since I posted a video. My wife and I did I did a basement remodel by myself at my wife's encouragement and behest, but I really wanted to do it. That's basically been what I've been doing for the last month and a half, 2 months. I also switched jobs, so it's been sort of just getting into the groove of that and finally settling down, and I finally am settled down. And so I'm in my current office in the basement, and I was curious if you guys would be interested in seeing me remodel this office a little bit. I have some cool ideas for what I want to do behind me. I made that slab wall and didn't film it. I didn't really think anybody would want to see that, but just let me know what you'd like to see. If you want me just to talk about tech stuff, that's fine. I have no problem. But a lot of the stuff I want to build is tech based, like LED slat walls that this one guy made, this like white and revelry. I'll put the link down below and I'll show a picture of it here. It's absolutely beautiful. The guy, it's insane. I want to do something like that. Let me know if you'd be interested in seeing that. I have a video that I've been working on for an extremely long time going up on my personal channel, the Scott Schroeder channel, about me running and trying to break a 6-minute mile that I've been working on for multiple months. That just takes me a while to edit that one because it's such a big video. So I hope to see you there, and I will see you guys in the next one later this week. Peace out.